Hello there. Welcome to my channel. Today I will play Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars Director's Cut, and I started a little earlier than the events from the original game. I hope you like it. If you have request for another adventure game or hidden object or match game, don't forget to write in the comments below the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell, for even more videos and walkthroughs. Enjoy!
Paris, city of love, romance and dreams. So they say. I used to say it too, but ever since that day, the day of the murder, I've always associated my beloved Paris with death. I was at home having a bath when my editor called.
Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royal now. You got an interview. With Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. No photos, so leave your gear at home. He asked for you personally. Don't ask me why. Anyhow, this could be big, so if he makes a pass, don't forget. Just smile, say yes, and keep taking notes.
So charming and so very apt. Pierre Carchon was a media king, a national hero, and one of the most infamous adulterers in Europe. He and his wife Imelda were just one step down from royalty. Whoa, I hate mimes, but unless you humor them, they don't go away. Here I was, the palace of the Media King and the Ice Queen. I pressed the doorbell and set in motion a chain of events which would change my life forever.
Yes? What is it?
Madame, my name is Nico. I'm here to see Monsieur Carchon.
Come up, we're on the first floor.
Madame Carchon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Ice Queen was certainly living up to her reputation. Will you be staying for the interview?
Mademoiselle, I know little of my husband's business affairs, and I care even less. I certainly have no intention of watching him pore over yet another pretty little journalist.
Pretty? You're too kind, madame.
Ah, the talented and very beautiful Mademoiselle Collard. Such a pleasure to meet you at last.
Monsieur Carchon, I am honored.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Call me Pierre, please. But I do not flatter you idly. I was a friend of your father. He was a great man.
My father, he never mentioned.
He and I were very close. And then his death. So tragic. I must... Imelda, your damned cat's in my study again. Another Ming vase, I suppose. Excuse me for one moment, my dear girl.
You journalists are getting younger each year.
Perhaps it's the rest of the world getting older, madame. That was no cat. My God, what? Monsieur Carchon!
He's dead. I must call the police. You'd better stay here.
There was a man. It was the Mime. Do you think he...
Well, I believe we can rule out suicide, don't you?
No wonder they called her the Ice Queen. She would have been top of my list of suspects if I hadn't seen the attacker myself. And if I hadn't come across a couple of murders just like this already. One of the most important men in Europe murdered. And here was I, Nico Coulard, alone at the scene of the crime. Should I wait for the cops? Or start my own investigation? It was a no-brainer.
Palais Royal, Pierre Carson interview. Relaxing in Bath when I was disturbed by phone call from my editor, Ronnie. He asked me to interview Pierre Carson, media tycoon and serial philanderer. On the case like a shot. Creepy Mime outside the Carson's apartment. Mime. Carson cold as ice. Mr. Carson suave and charming, living up to his reputation. Played along with his flirtation. The sound of a vase smashing and Mr. Carson went to investigate. A gunshot. I rushed to the room and found Mime standing over Carson's body. Mime beckoned. As I walked to him, he punched me, knocked me out. Came to find Imelda distraught. Almost feel sorry for her. Must get to the bottom of the story before the police arrive. This is the break that I have waited for.
Move the mouse pointer around the screen to discover areas of interest, which will be indicated by an animating blue circle. When the pointer passes over an object with which you can interact, it will change to an animating icon reflecting the available action. Press the left mouse button to perform that action. Click on those icons. Briefcase icon to open your inventory and display the objects that you are carrying. Diary icon to access the diary. Question mark to get puzzle hints and interface help. Spanner icon to save and restore a game and adjust settings. These icons can be found in the lower section of the screen.
Mimes and guns don't usually go together, but I had an idea that this was no ordinary mime. I'd come across this murderer before, and written about him. The costume killer, at least that's what I'd called him. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It must have fallen when I was knocked down. His lifeless eyes stared blankly at nothing. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do for the poor fellow. I opened his eyes. Best to leave the crime scene as I found it. Some people hate searching corpses for clues. Me, I'm okay with it. Reminds me of an old boyfriend. Carson had been shot. In his pocket, I found a ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. Taking the ticket meant I tampered with the evidence. There was no going back now.
To use an inventory item on a background object, click on that item and hold the mouse button. While continuing to hold mouse button, drag the item over a hotspot and release when it highlights with a gold outline. To look at the object from inventory or the background, click with the right mouse button on the object.
It was a boat ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. When I was a little girl, Papa used to take me on the Bateau Mouche as a treat. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. A bust of Pierre Carson humble servant of La France. The bookcase was filled with obscure first editions. You had to hand it to the Ice Queen. She sure knew her fabrics. A small round piece of glass had been cut out of the pane. This was a professional job. This was the work of the mime. Unless the cat was in on it too. I didn't want to cut myself and leave blood on the glass. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep my DNA to myself. Your original 18th century high-security window handle. The killer must have used a ladder to reach the window. He was long gone. Guess he folded that ladder up, popped it in his pocket and took it with him. The police could turn up at any minute. Somewhere there were clues to the murder, and I needed to find them. A medieval pageant. Original, no doubt. The tapestry must have cost a fortune. A Louis XIV table with an antique cloth. Imelda had taste. But hey, with a husband that rich, taste is easy. A beautiful cloth had been draped over the table. It was embroidered with an unusual cross. I reckoned that cloth might just turn out to be useful. There was a tiny hole in the tabletop. Part of the inlay had been chipped away. Even my fingernail wouldn't fit into such a small hole. The cloth was embroidered with an unusual symbol. Aha! Nico, you are just so damn good at this stuff. A key had been hidden in a secret compartment. A modern key. Instead of comforting Imelda, I was ransacking her flat. Why? Because there was something going on here, and I had to get answers before the cops arrived. And hey, she'd been rude to me, so she had it coming. A key. Maybe a safe key. Imelda had talent, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her that. It was a tube of acrylic paint. French ultramarine. Just the colour I was after for my bathroom.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Someone is...
Young lady, what are you doing? Oh, this paint. It's my favourite colour.
For God's sake, keep the damn stuff.
Imelda looked shocked, but still every bit as hostile. Excuse me, madame.
Yes?
The cool thing about dialogues here is that it's not like long lines to read, but more like just an icons to click.
Why would a mime want to kill your husband?
Pierre had plenty of enemies. Half the husbands in Paris for a start.
How did your husband know my father?
I have no idea.
You didn't know him? Thierry Collard?
Pierre knew a lot of people I didn't know, most of them women.
I am so sorry for your loss, madame.
No, you're not. You're a journalist. Journalists don't feel sorry.
Not true.
We shall see.
Why did your husband send for me? What did he want to discuss?
I have no idea. His business was his business.
He never told you anything?
No, and frankly I preferred it that way. This is quite a scoop for you. I suppose you're already inventing the headlines.
Just because I am a journalist.
Don't patronise me. You're all cut from the same cloth. Do you have any moral sense at all?
Yes, that's why I do this job.
You do it to see your name in print.
As if.
My editor gets the byline, I just do the work.
Well, don't expect my sympathy.
The police will be here soon, madame. Is there anybody you would like me to contact? Family, friends?
No, I have no family. Pierre and I were... He was all I had, really. Not much, was it? The dutiful wife. That was my role. He never talked, never let me in.
I know one thing, madame.
What?
If you want to find out who killed your husband, then you let me do the job, not the police.
Why? How do I know I can trust you?
Your husband invited me here today because he needed me. I think he knew somebody wanted to kill him, and he knew I could help.
I doubt it was your database he was after.
You're wrong. I was onto his killers already, I am sure of it. Please, you owe it to him.
I don't know.
All I need is a few more minutes to look around before the police come.
You really do have a moral sense, don't you? I trust so few people. And perhaps Pierre really did think that you could help. Of course it wouldn't have stopped him seducing you too. Here, take this. It's the key to the drawing room next to the library at the end of the hall. It was Pierre's room. I rarely went in there. I couldn't. I was too scared of what I might find.
Thank you. I promise you won't regret this.
Imelda doesn't trust me very much. Fortunately, she has chosen to let me investigate her husband's murder.
A fine Baroque door. It would look great in my apartment. The door was locked. It was the drawing room key. Now we were getting somewhere. The tube of paint from Imelda's easel, French ultramarine. The painting showed the Cachons together, in love. As the poet said, the past is a different country. Or did I read that in a fortune cookie? The Cachons, noblesse oblige. The painting was attached firmly to the wall. Aha! There was a small button hidden in the picture frame. There was the very faintest of clicks. Behind the picture was a safe. The safe looked pretty secure. The safe was locked. I needed the key. There was a strange stone cylinder in the safe. In the safe was some kind of artifact. There were strange symbols on its surface. It looked like the printer's blocks I'd made at art school. If there was one thing I'd learned about symbols, they are always important. But these symbols scratched into stone were impossible to read. I needed to find a way of printing them. At least the stone was round. But what could I use for ink? And what could I print on? Sure, I was stealing, but I knew Imelda didn't know about the artifact, and Cachon was past caring. Even the light switch looked impressive. I didn't need the lights on. It was light enough already. The sofa was antique. For one horrible moment, I had an image of a naked Cachon wriggling around on it with a young journalist. Oh. This wasn't the time for me to lie on this sofa doing my Marie Antoinette impression. Though it is very popular at parties, especially with gay guys. Don't ask me why. As expected, the desk was yet another priceless antique. Yawn. The blotter and in tray had clearly been placed with mathematical precision. My heart skipped a beat. It was a carved elephant. But not just any carved elephant. It had been made by my father. I knew for certain because in my apartment I had its exact twin, carved into a box he had made. So Carchon had known my father. They really must have been friends. I decided to take the carved elephant. It clearly meant nothing to Imelda. It was the beautiful elephant my father had carved. The in-tray, like everything else in this place, was beautiful. One day I was going to have an in-tray like that, even if I had to sell my apartment to pay for it. It was a sheet of blotting paper in a leather holder. Its cracked surface looked ancient, reminded me of its owner. I'd spread blue paint over the bottom of the tray. It was ruined. I was a very bad girl, but also quite a clever one. I rolled the artifact in the paint until it was completely coated. No. There were still some traces of paint in the tray. It would never be the same again. Genius! The roller and the paint worked just as I planned, but what did it say? A secret message had been printed on the blotting paper. It was some kind of coded message. It read, "Sub judice." I may not have learned a lot as a journalist, but that was a term I knew well. It means a legal case that is before the courts. Below it was a sequence of letters that made no sense. I suddenly realized there was a connection between the boat ticket and the coded message. The boat ticket was stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. The Conciergerie on the Ile de la Cité, by the river, housed the ancient law courts. So, sub judice could in this case mean literally under the law courts, below the Conciergerie. I was pretty sure I'd found all I could here. And besides, all this opulence was making me pine for my regular life of poverty. This was a huge story. It was also one heck of a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. But I was going to crack it. And if I could just remember the name of that fancy prize you get for being an ace journalist, I was definitely going to win it this time.
In Carchon's safe, found a stone cylinder with symbols carved on surface. Got an imprint and found that it contained a coded message. Sub judice, SDSSDSS. Sub judice refers to a case that is under the jurisdiction of a court, but what about the letters? Carchon was carrying a boat ticket marked Bateaux de la Conciergerie, the Conciergerie being the ancient law courts. The coded message includes the word sub judice. I should follow the clues exactly by going to the quayside on the Lit de la site, literally under the Conciergerie.
The paint had been squeezed from the tube. Rolling out the painted cylinder had given me a print of a secret message. It read, "Sub judice." Below it was a sequence of letters, SDSSDSS.
Did you find anything useful?
This carving, do you know anything about it?
It was Pierre's. What does the statue have to do with...
Please, I need to know.
He was given it by a friend, something to do with Africa.
He never explained any more.
No, but I think it was important to him, always on display. Why?
It was carved by my father.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Imelda, I will do everything I can to find the killer.
Thank you, my dear.
And if the police ask...
Don't worry. You were never here.
Sub judice was the key. I was going to have to find a way under the conciergerie. I decided to head straight for the quayside on the Ile de la Cité. If there was a way of getting under the conciergerie, it would have to be from there.
Lee de la Cite, an hour later.
Carchon wasn't the type for messing about on the river. He was up to something down here. Something that got him killed. An old boyfriend of mine owned a barge once. Dampest relationship I ever had. In every way. This fence was a permanent fixture. The fence wouldn't move. This fence was a permanent fixture. This fence wouldn't move either. I wasn't leaving yet. I had a hunch there was more to find. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. It was embroidered on the lace cloth I'd picked up at Carchon's apartment. I knew I was on the right track. I tried pushing the fence, but it wouldn't move. A strange pair of locks stopped the latches from releasing the gate.
You must move the rectangular blocks, so the latch can slide all the way across, so releasing the gate to open. Blocks move along their length, some vertically, some horizontally. To move a block, click on it and drag it horizontally or vertically along the appropriate axis.
Yes! One down, one to go.
The right panel was a little harder for me than the left panel. Don't know why for sure.
Nothing like a good convent education for honing your lockpicking skills. For a room full of junk, that was one very sophisticated lock system. This place was definitely fishy, in more ways than one. It was almost as if the fence was intended to double as a bridge. I really didn't want to pull the fence back up and risk trapping myself in this place. The skiff hadn't been touched for years. I've got an exercise bike just like that. I'd wrecked the skiff. Not that it was particularly seaworthy anyway. Moving the skiff would only damage it more. It was an old shell case, probably from the 50s. I knew what I was talking about. I grew up watching war movies. An old shell case. I wondered what that was doing there.
Below the conciergerie sub-duties, found a shell case underneath rotting skiff. Weird thing to find in a grotto.
A rough hole was cut into the pillar. The words Sinister and Dexter were carved on either side. Now any good convent girl like me knows the old Roman for left, right, But what did it mean here?
If you remember from the hidden message we find earlier, there were
hole
drawings
was
of a
too
button
small
just
even
like
for
those
my
on
little
left and
hand.
right side above the hole. Also, S and D letters, which here are for Sinister and Dexter. I am sure you can figure it out now.
Mystery solved. Carchon's stone cylinder slotted into the hole with a satisfying click. No. A satisfying click told me I turned it to the right position. It felt like tumblers in a safe. Another click. Another step closer. I love the sound of locks clicking open. Carchon's cylinder had fitted snugly into the hole. I removed the stone cylinder.
Carchon's stone cylinder operated a mechanism which opened door to a hidden chamber. But my way is blocked. Someone has gone to great lengths to protect something.
Ut lex vel ut next sumito. To the law or unto death submit. I guess these people didn't believe in liberté, égalité, or fraternité. Yes, I'll admit it. I was a swot at school. I also wore lipstick and the nuns never knew. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before.
This is the cross from the lace cloth. Also, it was outside the door too.
Oh my God! The slab came down with a hell of a force. With nothing to hold it up, the cross dropped back down again. If I was going to get a closer look at the panel, I'd have to find a way of keeping the cross up. Lifting the cross closed the entrance door and also opened some kind of stone panel. Ingenious. The brass case was smooth and perfectly round. The stone cross was propped up. Now I was getting somewhere. A round slot precisely carved into the stonework. I touched the slot. Nothing bad happened, which was good. I've always been attached to my fingers. This slot was designed for something specific. But what? The artifact slotted into the hole perfectly. Behind the old walls, I could hear some kind of mechanism groaning into life, but whatever had been triggered had now jammed. A hidden door. This was getting interesting. Shame the mechanism jammed. I was going to have to find a way to prise it open. The gap was too thin for me to get a grip. I needed something thin enough to prise the door open. I removed the shell case. The cross didn't drop back down. Some kind of mechanism was holding it up. A brass shell case versus a stone slab contest. The stone slab had flattened one end of the shell case. The shell case had been flattened at one end, forming a serrated edge. I removed the shell case. Another good use for a shell case. Another secret room. Somebody had something to hide. But was it what I was looking for? I removed the shell case. Wow! Through the darkness, I could see that this was a stateroom. But for what purpose? And how did it tie in with Carchon? It was an old circuit breaker, like something from a Frankenstein movie. Amazing! The thing still worked. The room lit up bright as day. Lady Justice stared out from a stone door, which was locked and reinforced with steel bands. A slot next to the safe door. All I had to do was find something to fit into it. It was like being back in kindergarten. All I needed now was a shape that would fit the slot. That wasn't going to help.
Looks like, until for now, this mystery will stay unsolved. Maybe, later in the game I will back here.
A door
Or
like
I need to
that
test something
always
else.
has something important
We'll make
behind
new
it.
video when I solve this
I had
mystery
to
and we'll
find a
show
way
you
to
how.
unlock it. The flags had faded, but their message was still pretty clear. Fascist regalia, a message of hate. The desks were covered with a layer of dust. No one had worked here for years. I wasn't going to find anything in this old desk. It hadn't been used for years. The flags had faded. It was a drawer. I wondered what was inside. It was pretty clear from the lack of dust that someone had been working very recently at this desk. Oh my God! The sheet was a printout with my personal information. Everything from my favorite food to my waist size. They were right about chocolate, but come on guys, I'm a size 10. There was even a picture of me, taken with a telephoto lens. Carchon wouldn't have taken these pictures himself. This was big and organized. I was part of it, and people were getting murdered.
I've made it into an extraordinary stateroom, the place that someone wanted to hide. Something very sinister going on, and I'm part of it.
The dregs at the bottom of the mug hadn't dried out or gone moldy. It wasn't more than a day old. This was the article I'd written about the costume killer. My suspicions were right. Carchon had cut it out. 2 businessmen had been killed. One in Italy, one in Japan. In each case the killer had worn a costume. A penguin and then a snowman. But that wasn't the only link between the 2 murders. Both the victims had been big media do-gooders, and I proved they were just the opposite. So, how did they fit in with Carchon? Inside the drawer, I found a note written in some kind of code. Damn, don't you just hate it when that happens? The drawer had come out easily enough, but wouldn't fit back into place. A photo, long lost, had fallen down the back of the drawer. It was very old, but there was no mistaking the guy in the foreground. Carchon. Behind him were soldiers, a burning village and a corpse. The photograph was cropped on the right-hand side. Somebody else in the picture obviously didn't want to be in it anymore. I wasn't surprised. This was Africa in the 60s. An uprising was being brutally suppressed. And here was Mr. Media himself, Carchon, doing the suppressing. The photograph was not just powerful evidence. It was also my ticket to one explosive story. The photograph showed Carchon smiling happily to camera, with a background of burning huts and death.
The note has been written using a substitution cipher. This means that a different symbol has been used to represent each letter of the alphabet. To crack the code, you must correctly match all the symbols to their corresponding letters. Highlight a symbol, then highlight the corresponding letter. If you make a mistake, click on the Go Back button to step back, or you can reset the whole puzzle by clicking on the Reset button. It's best to start with the two letters words. They could be to, is, at, and, no. Also, more than just that word will change, so you can test and see what will happen. For 3 letters word, it could be the, to, him, her, she. Try it. Here, must be 2 of the same letters to next of each other. The closest word is to. First word of the code is a name. It could be Pierre. Like Pierre Karchin. You can see how using one letter can change other words too. Like the word follow and full. The whole message is that Pierre. Full report to follow. But this is too urgent to wait. Arno and Yamada both dead. This is not a coincidence. Indeed, it seems that all of us who came together in July are in danger. Take great care.
I have
X.
decrypted the note. It read, Pierre. Full report to follow. But this is too urgent to wait. Arno and Yamada both dead. This is not a coincidence. Indeed, it seems that all of us who came together in July are in danger. Take great care. X. I wasn't the only one to make the connection between the costume killer murders. I'd been right all along. That was why he had asked to meet me. But what did I know that he didn't? I had enough for a story. An amazing story that was going to make my reputation and blow Carchance to pieces. I needed to get home fast and start typing.
Nico's apartment, that evening.
Bonsoir, Collard.
Nico, it's Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, you cracked open the champagne yet?
Are you crazy?
What's wrong? Wait a minute. You didn't print it, did you?
Course I didn't print.
That's the best piece I've written.
The last, as far as I'm concerned.
It's important.
It's suicidal. You can't destroy a national hero.
He deserved it.
His corpse isn't even cold.
Ronnie, 2 hours ago I told you what I'd found. You loved it. You begged me to write it up immediately.
2 hours is a long time in newspapers, Nico.
Someone's got to you, haven't they?
Listen up, Nicole, and listen good. Pierre Carchon had a lot of friends, powerful friends. For your own sake.
Forget what happened.
You got it. End of conversation. Good night.
This should have been my big break, but I knew there was nowhere else to sell this story. If Ronnie wouldn't print it, nobody would.
Bonsoir, Collard.
Mademoiselle Collard, my name is Plantard. I need to talk to you about your story. Your Pierre Carchon story.
How did you know about that?
There are people out there, madame, who will be very upset by this story.
Oh, really? Well, it's their lucky day. It's been spiked.
Yes, I know. We must meet.
We must?
I have information relating to your costume killer stories. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Café de la Chandelle Verte, Rue Alain Court. I shall be wearing a grey overcoat. You must talk to no one about this.
You can't tell me what to...
Tomorrow at 8. I'll be waiting.
People complain about newspaper articles all the time, but not usually before they're printed. I was beginning to feel scared. This guy, Plantard, could I trust him? Should I meet him or forget the whole business? I didn't have an answer.
This is everything for this episode, guys. In the next episode, I will take role of George Stubard, and will talk and walk with even more persona and places. Would we learn more about Costume Killer? Would we learn who is the Plantard? We will find out in the next episode. See you then.